Tonight, let's let the noise soften. Thoughtful. You've carried enough questions through the day about belonging, about being seen, about how to live alongside difference without losing yourself. The Romans asked those too. As oil lamps flicker in tenement windows and fountains whisper in the forum, we'll drift through the small mercies and practical compromises that let an empire breathe. This is history boring for sleepy minds. Not sensational battles, but the quieter decisions, tolerance of languages, gods, neighbors, that changed everything. Short pause. Now, settle back. Let your shoulders loosen. Breathe with the rhythm of distant footfalls on basalt stones. We're going to the hour when faith and law learn to share a bench, when priestesses and procurators bargain softly, and when the promise of belonging arrive like dawn over the Tiber. If you've ever worried about fitting in, new job, new town, new rules, Roman merchants felt that worry with every step. Imagine the Forum Boreum at dusk, cattle bells dim under the murmur of many tongues. Punic traders haggling over salted fish, Greek accountants rattling a bakai, a Jewish dyer testing indigo in a clay bowl. How did all these strangers trust one another? Rome's answer was the Jus Gentium, the law of nations, a practical bundle of customs for people who weren't Roman, but needed Roman fairness. It wasn't poetry, it was paperwork. Yet in a world stitched by ferried amphorae and shared bread, it worked like a lullaby for trade. The magistrate doesn't ask which god you pray to, he asks for weights, witnesses, and a wax tablet signature. Contracts cross languages, stamped with seals of dolphins or ears of grain. A Phoenician coin sits comfortably beside a Roman, as if the two metals have agreed to get along for the sake of a night's sleep. Here, tolerance is not a speech. It's a shrug that says, bring your measure, leave your quarrel. The city swallows foreign norms, keeps what's useful, and lets the rest drift away like smoke. This quiet syncretism of law, adopt, adapt, absorb, becomes habit. The baker learns the Greek word for sesame. The notary learns to spell Hadad. You, listening tonight, might feel the same relief. Permission not to be identical to belong. Rome's genius is not only aqueducts, it's the gentle, frictionless gear of rules that lets strangers sleep under the same roof. Long before edicts carved in stone, tolerance arrived in soft things, receipts, handshakes, a fair measure of oil. And as the lamps are snuffed, the river breathes. Everyone who traded honestly gets to rest. Citizenship is a tender word when you're tired. Home, but portable. In early Rome, it was a guarded key. Yet as the peninsula hummed with new roads and old grudges, the social war forced a rethinking. Allies, who bled in Roman battles, should not sleep outside Roman law. Slowly, deliberately, Rome widened the doorway. First Italians, then more distant peoples, until, like a long exhale, Constitutio Antoniniana, the Edict of Caracalla in 212 CE, whispered that nearly all free subjects were citizens. Imagine the sensation: a Gallic wheelwright in Lugdunum, a Judean glassblower in Caesarea, a Berber farmer near Volubilis, each waking to find that their signatures carry a Roman weight. Citizenship didn't erase difference, it wrapped it in predictable procedures, taxes, courts, inheritance. The paperwork grew, but so did dignity. A Spanish poet writes a petition and expects an answer. An Egyptian scribe files a complaint and expects a hearing. The empire's pulse slows into a rhythmic census. Names inked on papyrus, lives balanced in ledgers. For you, drifting into drowsiness, think of this as a blanket pulled wider across a crowded room. Not everyone likes the pattern, but everyone is warmer. Tolerance here is calm arithmetic. The state trades identity for stability. Keep your gods, keep our rules. doors open to the collegia, guilds knitting carpenters to copers, sailors to stevedores. Rituals cross-pollinate. A Gallic festival finds a Roman date, a Roman oath borrows a local tune. By night, the city breathes through many narrow windows. By day, it moves with one set of gestures. Citizenship, once a fortress, becomes a courtyard. The wheelwright still speaks Gaulish to his daughter, Latin to the tax collector, silence to the stars. Rome does not ask him to be the same. Rome asks him to sign here, please, and sleep peacefully once the ink is dry. When the city feels too big, guilds feel like a lullaby. The collegia, bakers, boatmen, lamp makers were little islands of sameness in Rome's sea of difference. Picture a back room of a tavern near the Tiber, a low table, a platter of olives, a painted shrine to the Lares of the guild. The brewer's chapter meets by lamplight to settle dues, schedule feasts, and adopt an orphaned apprentice. The rules are plain, the fellowship is thick as honey. A Cappadocian tanner sits beside a native Roman. The smell of dye mingles with warm bread. Sir, you can almost feel your shoulders drop. Someone knows your name and your trade. Tolerance here is practical affection. Newcomers bring techniques, Egyptian glass-blowing tricks, Syrian spice blends, Greek joinery, and the guild notes them down, not as scandal but as assets. Festivals fold in borrowed music. Processions add a foreign drum. When quarrels spark, and they do, the curator settles them with fines and toasts, not swords. The city hums because these tiny committees keep it from rattling apart. For you, listener, floating towards sleep, imagine yourself joining. You don't have to be remarkable. You have to be reliable. You bring a loaf, a story, a skill. You leave with a schedule and a sense of tomorrow. In a world sometimes painted with thunder, the collegia are soft weather, predictable, forgiving, lightly scented with olive oil and ink. And if a stranger arrives tonight, shy at the doorway, the treasurer will pat the bench and pass the bread. This too changed the Roman world, not imperial proclamations, but rooms where many accents learned the same song. Words on stone are louder than speeches. Walk any Roman street at twilight, and walls murmur in multiple tongues. In Ostia, a shop sign grins in Latin. Below it, a Greek line reassures islanders their coins are welcome. In Dura Europos, a painted synagogue carries Aramaic verses under a Roman ceiling beam. The empire learned to post its rules in more than one voice. Edicts in Latin and Greek, milestones naming emperors twice, market days chalked in local scripts. This is not romance, it is respect with a chisel. Bilingualism softens suspicion. A Thracian soldier reads a warning about warehouse fires and knows he's included in the city's safety. A Nubian trader finds his god's name carved without mockery. In the baths, jokes cross languages, sliding as easily as oil on skin. The result isn't perfect harmony. It's fewer sharp edges. When you are weary, nothing soothes like knowing the sign over the door is meant for you too. The SEO-friendly nouns the stonecutters would have loved, epigraphy, milestones, decrees, were simply tools for tenderness. By night, letters feel like lanterns. They guide, they gather, they glow. Rome's tolerance wasn't always a philosophy, it was a municipal habit. Put it in Greek for the fishers, add the local month name for the farmers. Spell the emperor's titles long so the proud feel seen. If you've ever been in a room and felt language slide past without catching you, you know what the second line means. It says calmly, stay, reassuring. You belong, gentle. The fountain water is for you. Down by the river, incense curls like sleep itself. The Iseum, a temple to Isis, glows with painted stars, lotus columns, and Roman footsteps. Here, Egyptian rites wear Italian sandals. A priestess in linen shakes the sistrum. A Roman matron ties a votive thread on her wrist. Syncretism is a big word for a small kindness, keeping your mother's ritual in a city far from home. No one asks the goddess for a passport. The pontifex only asks that processions mind the traffic. Tolerance is not a theory tonight. It's a schedule pinned to a wall. Dawn libation, midday hymn, sunset offering. The temple choir practices in Greek. The steward records donations in Latin. A sailor about to depart for Spain pours milk for Isis Pelagia, Lady of Safe Harbours. His wife places a tiny bronze boat on the altar. Around them, statues from many countries stand shoulder to shoulder, as if waiting in a gentle line. You might think this borrowing would blur identities until nothing mattered. Yet watch. The priestess teaches Roman devotees to fold linen as the Nile people do. The Roman matron teaches a new harvest blessing, and the goddess accepts both with the patient breath of the river. The city's mood shifts when people are allowed to keep their tendernesses. When gods travel well, neighbors do too. The Roman world changes not with thunder, but with a shared candle flame. If you're carrying a small, private hope tonight, set it quietly beside theirs. Let the temple doors close soft as a sigh. Beneath the clatter of taverns, a cooler world waits. The mithraeum is a cave-like room under a warehouse, benches low. Stars painted on a barrel vault, oil lamps like patient eyes. Soldiers, clerks, porters, men from Pontus to Mauritania gather to share bread, whisper vows, and stare at the Tauroctony relief as if it were the night sky itself. Here, rank matters less than reliability. The ritual is a choreography of trust. Pass the cup. Keep the secret. Carry one another's stories past the barracks gate. Tolerance, in this hush, is the art of narrowing difference until you can sit shoulder to shoulder. No one asks about your mother's god. The questions are simpler. Were you kind to an initiate? Did you keep the lamp trimmed? Afterward, they climb back into Rome together, their friendship a rope against city storms. The cult remains private, the courtesy spreads public. For you, ears full of quiet echoes, the lesson is small and steady. The longing often begins underground. In the empire's daylight, laws and letters build bridges. At night, simple meals do the same. The men leave carrying tiny phalari medals, tawny bread, and the knowledge that they are seen by someone who pronounces their name correctly. Rome changes by allowing such corners to exist. No spectacle, just a loud breathing. At Ostia, night gathers slowly because ships are late to sleep. Lanterns sway from masts. The harbour's lighthouse throws a slow heartbeat across warehouses stamped with dolphins and wheat sheaves. Here the silk routes end in salt, and tolerance is born of invoices. A Palmyran captain argues amiably about pepper weight. A Spanish vintner tastes brine on the wind and knows which amphorae will fetch a better price inland. The customs office, bored and careful, counts everything twice and everyone once. Trade doesn't demand love. It requires predictability. That requirement softens corners. Stevedores learn words for cinnamon, then words for friends. Greek and Latin blend into peer slang. Syriac blessings ride the rope coils. The empire's laws create the lane. People's small favours make it smooth. Tonight, a storm prowls offshore, but the dock foreman lets a foreign crew tie close to the best bollards. Tomorrow, those men will unload a little faster for his cousin. Tolerance is a ledger that remembers kindnesses. You, listening, may feel the harbour's rhythm under your ribs. The slow swing, the negotiated moorings, the relief of a safe berth. Rome's greatness is often told in marble. Here it is written in salt. Each ship carries not just cargo, but recipes, lullabies and jokes. By the time morning glows behind the lighthouse, the city has learned again that difference is not danger, it is inventory. Thoughtful, sleep in that idea a little, it holds. The bars are Rome's true parliament, and the debates are about water temperature. In the balnea, difference dissolves like fatigue. A Greek tutor, a Numidian cavalryman and a Roman midwife share steam and gossip. The rules are posted, quiet voices, sandals on, oil before striggle. But the unwritten ones matter more. Make room on the bench. Pass the olive oil. Pretend not to see the scar. Tolerance here is a choreography of small courtesies. Architecture helps. The caldarium, tepidarium and frigidarium guide strangers through the same sequence, equalizing the day's dust. In the palestra, Men of many accents toss a leather ball. In the apoditerium, a modest attendant watches your clothes with the seriousness of a priest. You may arrive tense from the street. You leave smelling of cedar and acceptance. If the city is a machine, the bars are the oiling can. For sleep, imagine the hiss of water on hot stone, the echoing murmurs under a vaulted roof, the soft scrape of a striggle as someone helps a neighbour with his back. No spears, no speeches, just the humble democracy of warm water. When the empire flexed, it built baths. When it needed peace, it used them. The world changes most on tiled floors, one kindness at a time. Once a year, Rome puts on a softer face. Saturnalia unties knots. Masters serve slaves. Gifts are small and silly, and worries wear caps with bells. It's theatre, yes, but theatre with balm. Hierarchy, the empire's backbone, receives a back rub. For a few days, different ways of being are not just tolerated but encouraged. You bring figs to the doorkeeper. He answers a pun with a better one. Laughter replaces suspicion, and the city takes a long communal exhale. Taverns string greenery. Temples hum with kindly chaos. A Jewish baker trades honeycakes for olive paste with a pagan neighbour. A Greek sculptor carves a tiny Saturn for a child who doesn't know the god, but loves the smile. Ritual reversal is not revolution, it is maintenance. The pressure leaves the system, goodwill trickles back in. When the caps come off and the roles return, they sit more comfortably, like sandals warmed by a fire. For your sleepy heart, consider how ritualized kindness holds communities together. The Romans wrote it into the calendar, so no one had to be brave to be gentle. They only had to show up. Tolerance might sound like a dry word, but here it tastes of chestnuts and spiced wine. The empire didn't survive on iron alone. It survived on holidays that taught neighbours to be pleased by one another. Tolerance isn't always enthusiasm. Sometimes it's uncertainty with manners. In Bithynia, Pliny the Younger writes to Trajan with a wrinkle between his brows. What to do about these Christians? They won't curse their God. They sing before dawn. They buy food in the market like everyone else. Pliny tests policies like bath temperatures. Too hot, too cold, just right? Trajan answers with moderation. Don't hunt them. Punish real crimes. Let accusations be honest. The result is not embrace, not expulsion, but a cautious middle that keeps nights quieter. Picture the dawn gatherings Pliny mentions. A few people in a courtyard, a hymn, a promise to behave decently. Then the day begins, looms clack, fish are salted, letters are sealed. In the absence of official hatred, neighbours make up their minds slowly and often kindly. Tolerance lives in time granted for understanding. It allows people to be odd while staying at the table. For you, drifting, consider how powerful a policy of don't panic can be. The empire's greatness lay less in thunderbolts than in measured replies. When rulers wrote rescripts that declined to inflame, the city slept better. The Roman world changed when authority learned to say, stay calm, carry on, handle cases one by one. It isn't glorious, and it fits perfectly in a bedtime story. Hadrian travels. Not in a parade, but in patient loops across the map. Britain's wind, Egypt's glare, Athens' thoughtful shade. He speaks Greek with philosophers, inspects synagogues respectfully, restores temples not because he agrees with every god, but because people breathe easier when their sacred places are tended. Tolerance here is maintenance. An emperor who listens oils the hinges of an empire. In a small town, a dispute over a shrine's boundary could sour harvests. Hadrian hears both sides, sketches a line with his staff, and orders a stone set there tomorrow. He doesn't erase difference, he organizes it. His letters read like gentle engineering, bridge the river, repair the theatre, leave the local calendar intact. When he builds Hadrian's wall, it isn't hatred, it's clarity. This side pays these taxes, that side those. By evening, the town's arguments have somewhere to rest. If you've wished, secretly, for a listener with power, you understand the relief these visits brought. A good ruler's tolerance is not softness, it is steadiness. He keeps the water level, he asks. Thoughtful, what would help? And then he writes it down. As night gathers in a provincial inn, someone says, relieved, he heard me, and sleeps better. A law can feel like a blanket, if it's big enough. In 212 CE, Caracalla spreads one. Constitutio Antoniniana grants citizenship to nearly all free inhabitants. Motives mixed, taxes, loyalty, legacy, but the effect is simple. Many doors stop creaking. Inheritance disputes shrink. Local elites step into Roman courts without knocking. Veterans, returning to Africa proconsulis or Syria prima, carry the same paper comfort as those in Latium. Think of names changing like dawn. Longer, Roman, tria, nomina, stitched to older ones. A Moorish potter becomes Marcus Aurelius Uber on his contracts. At home, he's still Uber, and no one minds. Tolerance here is layered identity accepted by law. Meanwhile, the cursus publicus, messengers ride out with copies. Scribes in small towns practice the wording until the letters behave. Across the empire, people test the new status on everyday tasks. Buying a mule, adopting a niece, suing over a leaky roof, the law holds. For your pillow, imagine the stamp of a seal pressed into hot wax, the satisfied lift of a pen. The empire grows quieter when paperwork stops arguing with reality. Caracalla's blanket doesn't solve everything, but it makes the night less drafty, and that often is enough. Cities are calendars walking. Processions thread through alleys. Lupercalia runners, laughing. Isis worshippers, singing. Local market saints weaving between. How does a crowded city keep its festivals from bumping heads? With a quiet pact, stagger the days, mark the routes, let the drums take turns. Priests meet over bread to compare maps. The aedile approves timetables the way a mother arranges bedtimes, so everyone rests. Tolerance is logistics. A Jewish community closes their workshop at sundown Friday. The aedile marks a no-inspection note. A mithraic feast needs darkness. Neighbors agree to share the courtyard later. People learn one another's rhythms like household creaks. Hear the door groans, hear the stair, sighs. Friction fades when schedules fit. You, easing towards sleep, know this truth from your own life. Peace isn't only beliefs, it's routines that respect them. Rome keeps the peace with chalk lines and considerate footsteps. The gods watch from balconies, amused and appeased as the city performs its complicated kindness. Books are the empire's softest power. Under the Porticus Octavii, readers lean into lamplight, a stoic mumbling about virtue, a physician tracing Galenic notes, a poet reciting lines about a Thracian mother. The library catalogue doesn't mind origins. It sorts by subject, not by accent. A freedwoman copyist compares Greek and Latin versions word by word, letting them negotiate like courteous neighbours. Tolerance in pages is contagious. A Roman boy finds comfort in a Syrian fable. A Greek girl giggles at Plautus. Everyone agrees the librarian's cat owns the place. Knowledge travels without passports. Medical recipes, farming tips, star charts. When people learn from strangers, they fear them less. The shelves teach the city to breathe in more languages than it speaks. For your rest, hear the scratch of a stylus, the soft flip of papyrus, the sigh of a shelf settling. The world changes here because ideas are offered without interrogation. You may take what helps and leave gently what doesn't. That generosity, learned at desks, walks home in sandals. Along the Via Appia, little altars tuck into hedges. Travellers touch them lightly, some to Mercury, some to a local spring. No one polices the gestures. The road is busy with bigger work. A brigand will be chased, a quiet prayer will not. These shrines are the empire's emotional mileposts, reminding a legionary from Dacia and a potter from Campania that their small fears are permitted to ride along. Tolerance is letting private comfort happen in public. A mother ties a red thread for her son's fever. A mithraic initiate leaves a coin. A farmer pours the last sip of his water on dusty roots. By allowing many tiny loyalties, Rome gathers loyalty to itself. The road feels friendlier when it nods to your God on the way to someone else's city. For sleep, picture the moon on worn stones, the hush of fields, the whisper of a traveller's thanks. The empire holds because it lets hearts keep their talismans. That lenience costs nothing and buys quiet nights. In 313 CE, Constantine and Licinius issue the Edict of Milan, not a trumpet blast, but a key turning. It grants religious toleration across the empire, returning confiscated places of worship and asking officials to stop pinching consciences. After years of uncertainty, the instruction is simple: let people approach the divine as they think best. The effect is domestic. A congregation gets its meeting house back, a craftsman stops hiding his symbol, a neighbor waves without glancing over his shoulder. Tolerance here is legalization of ordinary comfort. Priests file inventories, governors post notices, city councils relieved fold religious quarrels back into civic life. The empire does not suddenly agree, it agrees to stop harassing. For those who prayed in shadows, lamp oil is now bought openly. For those who preferred older gods, nothing is taken away. The city keeps walking, only quieter. As your eyes grow heavier, feel the latch lift. Shh, doors opening make less noise than doors slammed. The Roman world changes because administration chooses peace where it can. If you've longed for permission just to be, no applause, only ease. You know why this mattered. Sleep on the thought that policy can be a lullaby. Before sunrise, the magistrate's doorway gathers soft footsteps. In Rome, freedom often begins early, with warm breath fogging the air and a quiet line of hopefuls. Manumission, the setting free of a slave, can happen in a temple or before a court, witnessed by simple ritual and careful ink. A young woman from Phrygia, who has baked bread and balanced ledgers for 5 winters, hears her name followed by a Roman one. Not erasure, addition. Her old name is a shell she keeps. The new one is a lamp for the street. Tolerance hides in procedures that let complicated truths stand without scolding. The household keeps its shape, yet its hearth makes space for a freedwoman's contract, libellus folded under her belt. She will join a collegium funeratisium, choose a god's festival to attend publicly, and write to a brother in far Cappadocia that he may visit without fear. A patron, once her master, will still be named on formal occasions, but their bond tilts toward partnership. She plans a bakery stall. He advises on rent. The law watches with a gentle, practical eye. In the city's long memory, every freedom ceremony is a stitch that holds strangers to citizens, and citizens to neighbors. Freed people become the city's most determined caretakers, buying candles for shrines, serving on block committees, speaking 2 languages by instinct. You can feel the mood change where manumission is frequent, the streets more patient, the noise less brittle. Tonight, as you drift, imagine a wax tablet closing softly on a new signature. Someone stands a fraction taller. The day's first ovens kindle not only bread, but belonging. In the twilight kitchens of Trastevere, Pestles murmur against mortars. A Syrian cook toasts cumin. A Roman grandmother measures garum by feel. An Alexandrian spice seller unknots a bag of pepper that came up from Muziris. The empire's palate broadens without manifesto, only recipes. Tolerance tastes like a stew that welcomes cinnamon, vinegar, lovage, and the last pear of autumn. Cooks are translators, thoughtful. The Syrian shows how to temper heat with honey. The grandmother insists on a bay leaf for luck. The spice seller suggests the trick of cracking pepper at the table so its scent stays friendly. In crowded insulae, neighbors trade Apicius-style notes through walls thinner than pastry. A pinch more asafoetida. Warm the oil first. Serve with quiet. The market obeys. Today's stalls carry dates beside figs, coriander beside mint, sesame beside pine nuts. Differences set peacefully, shoulder to shoulder, like jars on a shelf. Belonging grows in mouths before minds. A praetorian who distrusts your accent may praise your lentils. A sandal maker who mutters at your god may ask for your fish sauce trick. And tonight, as pots, sighs, sigh, and lamps bloom, you can feel kindness rise like steam. No questions about origins, only seconds offered. The Roman world shifts not because soldiers conquered kitchens, but because kitchens conquered soldiers, with patience, with pepper. A crooked street hides a small iatrion, a doctor's shop where Greek and Latin share the same pulse. Shelves hold Galenic mixtures. A water clock tinks like a timid bird. Patients enter with ordinary sorrows. A porter's strained shoulder, a washerwoman's cough, a child's night terrors. The physician, trained in Pergamum, speaks slowly, letting his accent rock the room to calm. He writes prescriptions in Greek for precision and repeats them in Latin so grandmothers can follow. Tolerance here is bilingual medicine, not grand. Incredibly kind. A Roman midwife arrives with a basket of herbs, rue, fennel, Silphium's humbler cousins. They compare notes, smile over differences, add chamomile to a sleeping draught, whisper thanks to Asclepius and Salus without arguing which one listens better. Outside, a soldier peers in. Relieved, the doctor doesn't mind his foreign discharge diploma. The clinic knows how to read the army's stamps. When cities learn to heal without suspicion, nights grow easier. The physician charges less if a neighbor cannot pay. The neighbor mends his shutter latch in return. You, feeling your breath slow, may picture the spoon, the cordial, the quiet assurance that the fever will break by third watch if the patient keeps the blanket, and the faith. The Roman world changes, not with miracle cures, but with steady hands, unbothered by the country of your cough. Behind a portico draped with ivy, a Roman matrona keeps a ledger for quiet gifts, oil for the bathhouse, sandals for the orphan guild, repairs for a small temple wall shared by many gods. She hosts convivia, where guests of mixed accents sit, by rank and appetite, not creed. Tolerance wears her bracelets. She asks which festivals need dates moved to avoid crowding, which pensioners cannot climb the Capitol steps, which foreign widows know a weaving pattern the guild should learn. Urgetism, the habit of generous civic spending, can be loud, but the matrons is a hush. Anonymous donations, benches added where tired bodies rest, fountains widened so pitchers don't collide. She endows a taberna medica corner for women, staffed by a Cappadocian midwife, and a Roman herbalist who enjoy disagreeing softly. At her table, recipes and lullabies are swapped with the same seriousness as contracts. You may picture her in evening light, checking off a list, content that her name won't be carved on a giant arch, but will be remembered in easier days for strangers. The city changes because some people use their comfort to cushion others' difference. While senators argue about glory, women often orchestrate peace with bread and chairs. It is a simpler music, more useful for sleep. On a windy frontier, pick Britain. Pick Dacia. The fort's ditch glitters like a sleepy eye. Inside, auxiliary soldiers from far provinces share a barracks stove. Sarmatian cavalrymen plaiting main ribbons. Batavian swimmers teasing them about braids. A Mauritanian scout mending a drum. Orders arrive in Latin. Jokes arrive in whatever tongue will land. The Vinderlander-style tablets in the office are a mess of affection. Invitations to birthday feasts. Requests for more socks. A note about the good beer at a local farm. Tolerance blooms where danger is a daily task. The prefect learns the right festival dates to keep spirits even. The quartermaster stocks pepper for those who miss home. In the Principia, the standards look down on a small altar shared by many smaller gods who seem unbothered by the company. When patrols return soaked, the bathhouse respects modesty differences with a curtain at a corner and no comment. Imagine the night watch. Two men with different childhood rivers share the same cold wall and talk about horses. They do not agree about everything. They agree to check each other's straps at midnight. Empires stay stitched when strangers can rely on one another tightly enough to sleep in turns. The fort's logs record rations. Unofficially, they record kindness. In a Spanish hill town, officials unroll a bronze lex with crisp Latin letters, one of those municipal charters like the Lex Ernitana that map city life. Court days, market fines, rules for elections, how to seat the council without fuss. The beauty is not marble. It is accommodation. Local customs find Roman phrasing and Roman expectations bend to local rhythms. The result? Predictability without flattening. Citizens discuss by the fountain. The olive miller likes the clause about honest weights. The potter appreciates protection for apprentices. The priest of a native spring nods that festivals have been woven thoughtfully around sowing. The charter's tone is an even pulse. Do not disturb neighbors. Do not steal water. Do not mock others' rights. If you must argue, speaking with authority, argue here, on these days, for this long. Tolerance receives a schedule. You can hear relief in the clink of cups at the tavern that night. While empires can roar, most governance purrs. By translating life into shared rules, Rome lets distant towns stay themselves. Without constant fear of misstep, people sleep bet. As dusk gentles the theatrum, vendors hawk nuts and cushions. A mixed audience trickles in, sailors, scribes, matrons, apprentices. The mimus troupe speaks a polyglot patter, Latin punchlines, Greek asides, Assyrian drummers' cheeky rhythm. Cackles. Laughter ignores borders. Even the stern magistrate in the front row lets his mouth soften when the clown juggles amphora lids like moons. Performance is practice for tolerance. Sit shoulder to shoulder. Listen together. Don't throw fruit. The chorus mocks everyone equally. Senators' sandals, philosophers' beards, the city's potholes. People whose gods debate in the marketplace share a joke and discover their sighs rise alike at a melodrama's end. The caviar teaches what the forum forgets. Strangers can synchronize hearts for an hour. Tonight, as torches flutter and a flute calms the final scene, you may feel your breath fall into the theatre's quiet. Empires change when public spaces are kind on purpose. The ushers guide, the actors bow to all. The law protects the stage from fury, so comedy can do its harmless doctoring. The city is easier tomorrow because it laughed together tonight. At a provincial capital, a crowd leans in as veterans receive diplomata, bronze tablets granting citizenship and marriage rights after long auxiliary service. The ceremony is plain. Names read carefully, units named proudly, a modest cheer. A Thracian archer squeezes his wife's hand. Until now, their union was a promise in the heart. With the diploma, it settles into law. Their children, already chattering in two tongues, belong without argument. Tolerance wears uniform edges here. The empire acknowledges that loyalty doesn't look only Roman at first glance. By granting rights widely at discharge, the state tells a whole ring of villages, your son's accents, your daughter's prayers, your household gods, bring them. The law will fold around them. Shops will trust your new seal. Guilds will note your experience. Land leases will no longer frown. When night comes, music finds the square. Old comrades teach local boys a marching song that becomes a harvest tune by winter. You may hear, in the rhythm, the sound of fences becoming porches. Empires don't merely expand, they absorb, and they keep what keeps them kind. Follow the pepper. From Muziris in India to Berenike on the Red Sea, across desert by camel caravans, up Nile barges to Alexandria, then west with steady hulls to Ostia. At each hinge, customs clerks greet new faces with ritual that sands rough edges. Measure, weigh, stamp, smile. A Palmyring broker recites rates in 3 languages. An Egyptian pilot signs with a symbol of a lotus. A Roman portitor records it all without fuss, caring more about tallies than theology. Tolerance thrives in predictable offices. A trader who trusts he'll be treated fairly returns next season with more than spice. He brings tales, techniques, and nephews to apprentice. The city's cooks gain flavor. Its scripts gain loanwords. Its streets gain shoes made to a new pattern that doesn't blister. The Periplus could be read as a recipe for coexistence. Show the safe harbors. List the expected greetings. Name the winds politely. At day's end, imagine a warehouse that smells of salt and pepper and hope. Workers sit on crates sharing dried figs, comparing superstitions. Laughing at how the sea has different names but the same mood. Empires that learn to be polite at their gates sleep with doors less bolted. The Roman world changed because docks learned to welcome without bending their ledgers. In Sardis, in Rome's Trastevere, and along trade roads, synagogues face the sun with dignified doors. Inside, Aramaic meets Greek under frescoed arches. Outside, public benches welcome any neighbor needing shade. The community keeps Sabbath, tends its poor, and pays its taxes. The city, when it is wise, acknowledges exemptions and leaves room on the calendar. Tolerance is a bench long enough for someone who won't come inside but might borrow comfort. At market, a Jewish dyer chats with a pagan tanner about indigo pits. At the bath, acquaintances note the absence on Friday dusk and keep towels warm for Saturday night. Civic letters request respectful treatment. Governors often answer with administrative calm. No forced offerings, no stolen menorahs, peaceful processions allowed. Neighbors learn that difference wrapped in predictability becomes habit. Tonight, picture the lamplighters pause before the synagogue door, the nod exchange with the elder on the steps, the shared concern over this season's olives. The empire, so often imagined as iron, changes shape when it chooses to be linen, strong, flexible, comfortable on skin. The bench remains public. The blessing spoken quietly within drifts out like a kind scent. Rules keep cities steady, exceptions keep them kind. At the forum, inspectors check weights, stall fees, and opening hours. Yet the ediles carry a second list, tucked behind the first. Notes about groups whose rights require gentle adjustment. A baker who cannot knead on a festival day gets a permit for early work. A fishmonger whose fast falls on market day is allowed to trade by proxy. The law does not become mush, it becomes hospitable. Clerks write small, neat addenda. Friday sundown, no summons. Circumcision supervised, medical safety. Slaughter per custom, tax maintained. Grumblers exist, but most neighbors learn the logic. The city still eats, still pays, still sleeps, and no one's God is pinched purely to prove a point. Tolerance here is paperwork that knows the difference between malice and practice. As you drowse, imagine a humble desk in a corner office where these notes are kept and refreshed by stewards who like things quiet. Empires need heroes less than they need decent administrators. The Roman world becomes livable when small authorities use discretion, like oil on hinges, sparingly, effectively, with a satisfaction that cannot be sculpted, but can be felt. Stand in a provincial sanctuary and listen. Locals call the mountain god one thing, Romans call him Jupiter Dolicanus or Silvanus. Travelers nod to both and pour one libation. Interpretatio Romana. The habit of equating gods across cultures could be arrogance, often it is diplomacy. By saying, your Stormlord and ours might be cousins, people kept shared festivals without dissolving their deities. It's a semantic handshake under a very old sky. Priests swap myths like recipes. Cuckolds. Our goddess loves rivers. So does Diana. Then she is Diana here. And she remains herself at home. The altar does not crack. In inscriptions, double-named gods accumulate praises rather than rivals. The city gains fewer quarrels and more reasons to schedule holidays that bring in visiting merchants with jingling purses. For your pillow, imagine a carved stone with many epithets, worn smooth by fingers of different dialects. People need not agree on everything. They agree to pray near each other without stepping on toes. The empire turns this talent into a civic art. Tolerance isn't emptiness, it is addition. And the stars above remain interested but unruffled. The insula breathes like a crowded instrument. Lullabies compete with dice rattles. Soup and laundry steam meet in stairwells. Danger sleeps here too. Fire, quarrel, loneliness. Tolerance in such close quarters is a code of small mercies. The vigili knocks softly when reminding residents to bank coals. The Greek musician practices earlier. The Cilician porter carries water for the old woman downstairs without being asked. A posted rule forbids cooking on upper floors. A posted smile says, "Cuckle, come use my brazier." Landlords attend block meetings, sometimes, where tenants of many accents propose practical fixes, shared washing days, a rope system for passing baskets, a watch rotor for sick rooms. The building's household gods accumulate gifts from every origin. A painted eye, a sprig of rosemary, a coin from far away placed face up for luck. Close living forces gentleness or misery. Rome learns to incentivize the first. You may picture the stairway at midnight, quiet except for a creak and a whisk of sandals. Someone leaves a loaf at a grieving door and does not wait to be thanked. Tomorrow's arguments will return as weather does, but the night keeps its calm because neighbors chose to sleep friendly. In a courtyard school, the grammaticus taps a reed on a wax tablet. Children chant declensions that sound like rain on tiles. Latin first, then Greek, then back again. A Nubian boy stumbles and a Samnite girl supplies the case ending with a grin. The teacher rewards accuracy and kindness equally. Both grease the door to rhetoric later. Tolerance becomes meter, call and response that requires listening. Lessons range from Homer to Ennius, from fables about foxes to speeches about fairness. The teacher corrects accents lightly. Clarity matters more than pedigree. Parents peek from the gate. Stonecutters, midwives, scribes, pleased that their children can greet a magistrate without fear and ask a question in any market between Ephesus and Tarraco. Education stitches the empire, thread by thread, without a border guard in sight. As evening cools the stones, the chorus softens into individual reading. A girl mouths a line about hospitality. A boy copies it carefully to send in a letter to a cousin far away. You might feel your own jaw unclench as the room's patience settles. Empires last when they teach children to share a mouthful of words before they share a mouthful of wine. At the kitchen shrine, Lara's watch over a family that speaks two prayers. One to a local river goddess, one to a city hearth spirit. The slave boy, soon to be freed if savings hold, touches both images with equal sincerity. His mistress doesn't mind. She adds a third token for a friend's safe childbirth. Household religion absorbs differences the way bread absorbs oil, wholly, without complaint. Evenings bring shared tasks. A Cappadocian nurse hums a lullaby while a Ligurian grandfather sharpens a sickle. Between them, A child ties red thread on a door latch against the evil eye, taught by a Sicilian neighbor who remembers the sea. None of it is official, all of it is binding. Tolerance here is domestic, rituals that make rooms feel safe regardless of passports. For your sleep, see the tiny flame, the steam from a stew, the nods exchanged as tokens are rearranged to make space for one more. Empires are built by surveyors, yes, but kept gentle by kitchens that can host a trio of small gods without jealous quarrel. Tomorrow, the boy will carry a loaf to an altar and think of freedom not as an argument, but as a supper where everyone fits at the bent. Outside the walls, fields hum with the logic of Cato and countryside gods. Tenant farmers consult both the Roman calendar and older local moons. The landlord, savvy if not sentimental, agrees to leases that respect sowing rights that keep hands steady and yields decent. He cares that the tithe arrives. He does not mind if the plough is blessed in a dialect before the furrow turns. Neighbours share tools and weather wisdom across accents. A Gaulish farmer shows how to hedge against wind. An Umbrian grandmother times the threshing song to match the appetite of the oxen. The harvest feast folds in a provincial dance that city cousins pretend not to enjoy and then request again. Tolerance in the countryside is quiet and practical. Less law, more law. As night spreads over stubble and stacked sheaves, you might hear the last joking call between fields. Save me a crust, save me a story. Empires that permit fields to follow their own hearts don't have to send soldiers to explain rain. The Roman world changes because rents are collected kindly and blessings are allowed to sound like home. Along a road lined with poplars, a complex of thermae and a small temple host pilgrims seeking quiet cures. An inscription invites all who come in peace. Roman, Celt, Greek. Leave your sandals and your quarrels at the door. The innkeeper knows how to pronounce unusual names. The bath attendant remembers who prefers warm or warmer. The priestess records dreams with even handwriting and no doctrinal questions. The incubatio, sleeping in the sanctuary for healing visions, requires silence, not sameness. A veteran dreams of a river. A merchant dreams of a lemon tree. A shepherd dreams of a clean fleece. The priestess translates each into remedies as practical as lullabies. Walk more, drink this tea, allow yourself time. Tolerance is a long table set for strangers, with ailments that rhyme more than their languages do. You, ready for sleep, can picture mats lined up in a dim hall, a single lamp, a water bowl reflecting one star. In the morning, pilgrims will dip coins, tie ribbons, and depart softened. Empires heal when travelers can rest without proving their gods to a gatekeeper. The Roman world changes because hospitality is offered as if it were medicine. And often it is. In a shop near the Argiletum, scribes copy text like bees stocking a hive. Greek medical treatises, Latin farming manuals, a Punic charm book rendered into soft Roman phrasing. Translation is a trade and a tenderness. A bilingual freedman compares two versions of a fable until both sound like the same river over different stones. The shopcat naps on a stack labelled, "To be collated," proving that no one fears their provenance. Readers enter and request what they heard at a lecture. A Stoic handbook with margins wide for notes. A love elegy with lines in both tongues for learning. A travelogue to Palmyra for a cousin who might go. The clerk doesn't demand a creed. He offers a price and a ribbon to tie the scroll. Tolerance is the assumption that minds may roam without passports. As lamps are snuffed one by one, the last scribe blows gently on drying ink. Somewhere in the city, a baker will read a line before sleep, and a jurist will copy it into a brief, and both will feel less alone. Empires change when ideas are allowed to find the readers they deserve. Not everyone can afford a grand tomb. Nearly everyone deserves a good goodbye. Collegia Funeraticia burial clubs collect small dues in exchange for certainty. a procession, a pyre, a name inscribed. Meetings are half admin, half family. Debates over wreath costs, jokes about who sings off-key, an earnest welcome for a new member from Numidia who explains his hometown's morning bread. The bylaws specify respect, the knights practice it. When death comes, the club performs with soft precision. A Syrian carpenter is carried by Roman and Greek hands. His wife is met at the gate by women who have stood in that place and know how to steady one another with soup and silence. Inscriptions often speak two languages for families that spoke three at home. The stone doesn't mind, and the dead would have liked the accuracy. Under stars, you may picture the last ember going dark and a friend whispering a prayer in the accent they shared at work. Tolerance saves its deepest courage for farewell, granting space for different rites around the same fire. Empires become kinder when they take care with endings. Mornings are easier when nights are merciful. Some thresholds soften danger. Temples promise asylum, a pause for pursuers and pursued. A young debtor clutches a laurel branch at the temple of Apollo. Creditors exhale and sit. The law will untangle, but not tonight. Priests provide water and a mat. The praetor sends a clerk who knows how to lower voices. Tolerance is the bravery of waiting, letting heat leave the room so justice can fit. Abuse exists, so do boundaries. The sanctuary draws a chalk line. No weapons pass this curb, no threats in this court, no shouting near the image. Sacredness lends the city a tone it sometimes forgets to use. By honoring the pause, neighbors learn to prefer outcomes reached in the key of quiet. As you drift, imagine the cool stone under the debtor's feet, the careful pouring of a cup, the way fear melts when eyes are not hunted. Empires that defend such islands of calm make fewer widows. The Roman world changes when mercy is architected and posted like opening hours. On the Capitol steps, delegations line up with scrolls, a Lycian city asking relief after a flood, a Thracian village requesting a road, a guild of Eastern traders offering a statue if a customs pinch is eased. The Senate hears with practiced manners, scribes record with ink that refuses to judge accents. Thoughtful, embassies are theatre of coexistence. The empire shows it can be addressed. The provinces show they can speak for themselves. Negotiations unfold like a careful dance. The Lycian envoy brings a map. A Roman engineer proposes a bridge. Both agree the goddess of that river should be honored at the cornerstone. The Thracian delegate, shy at first, brightens when a senator remembers his city's festival date from years ago. Tolerance is memory wielded as courtesy. Imagine the relief at day's end when requests are not granted fully but fairly. A partial tax holiday, a promise of surveyors next month, a letter to a regional governor nudging compassion. Cuckle. Empires are noisy. Justice is a good listener. The Roman world changes when far towns can climb the steps and not be turned away empty or humiliated. In Palmyra, colonnades shade merchants who count in Aramaic and carve contracts in Latin or Greek when needed. The famous tariff inscription lists taxes with the precision of a musician's score. Caravans pay, rest, and depart with trust intact. Statues honor traders with double names, Ogelu, Marcus. Proof that identity can be additive. Temples host processions where desert drums and Roman standards share sunlight without flinching. Tolerance in Palmyra is civic elegance, customs predictable, honors for many, laws posted clearly in languages that bring coin. A caravan from Hatra ties up beside one from Bostra. Their children race between columns without noticing which empire ends where. The city's stones, inscribed twice, are invitations rather than warnings. Tonight, picture the long street at dusk, letters catching gold, a merchant teaching a Roman child how to say the word for date properly. The Roman world expands not only by taking territory, but by admiring places that already know how to share. Palmyra's lesson, gentle as silk against skin, is that cities thrive when many scripts can be read without a guide. Across the sea, Carthage hums with Latin speeches and Punic lullabies. In Medauros, young Apuleius-type rhetors practice flourishes while market women bargain in a music older than Rome. Shrines to Tanit stand near baths paid for Roman donors. Olive presses feed ships that feed the capital. Tolerance is municipal ambition that doesn't demand sameness. Be splendid, the city says, and bring your gods. Guilds blend. Theatres applaud both Latin comedies and local dances. Schools teach grammar with a twirl of regional accent. The provincial governor's staff includes interpreters who do not apologize for necessary words that lack perfect equivalence. At night, the forum feels domestic. Families stroll, couples share sesame sweets, storytellers pull children into circles that ignore citizenship status completely. You may taste the sesame now, almost. Empires are often described by their armies, they are lived by their markets. North Africa's cities show Rome how dazzling difference can be when channeled into fountains and festivals. The world changes when prestige flows from generosity rather than uniformity. The end of our walk. Sit on a low wall and look back. The Roman world changed, not through a single edict or emperor's mood, but through the slow setting of customs into infrastructure. Roads that carried many tongues, laws that flexed without breaking, calendars that learned to share. Tolerance became ordinary. It wore the faces of clerks who posted bilingual notices, midwives who swapped recipes, dock foremen who saved the best mooring for a ship in trouble, guilds that adopted orphans without asking for their gods. Even when storms gathered, as storms do, the habits held. Citizens expected fairness. Neighbors expected courtesy. Officials expected to be measured by how calmly they handled differences. This expectation is the world's gentlest police. Markets opened on time. Theatres laughed on cue. Household shrines multiplied without jealousy, and the night watch checked doors for safety rather than obedience. The empire lasted as long as its kindnesses could be maintained, and when it faded, many of those kindnesses lingered like well-built stones in fields where new houses would rise. For your final breaths tonight, imagine the city from above, lamps like constellations, roads like rivers, small figures moving with the confidence that tomorrow's rules will be kind. This is the legacy we have toured, the soft mechanics of coexistence. And though our story stays in ancient rooms and under ancient skies, its lullaby is not lost. You are allowed, as they were, to hold your difference close and offer your neighbor bread. And now, let the streets empty, the harbor lamps steady themselves, the baths grow still, thoughtful. Imagine the city breathing, slow and even, as if the Tiber has taught it how. The laws we touch tonight, Jus Gentium Civitas, the edicts that unlatch doors, lie folded like clean linens, ready for tomorrow's gentle use. Shrines along the roads keep their tiny flames. Guild rooms remember the laughter that will arrive again with morning bread. You don't need to carry the whole empire into your sleep. Set it down carefully. The stone, the ink, the whispered songs under painted ceilings. Let them rest in their places. In these ancient rooms, we met people who made tolerance ordinary. Scribes with patient pens, merchants with honest scales, priestesses timing processions so neighbors could pass without crowding. Their work was small and repetitive, like the tide against a quay, like your breathing now. The Roman world changed because of such rhythms, not because of thunder. You are allowed that softness too. You're allowed to be different and still belong, to bring your own lamp and find that there is a place for it on the shared table. As the final images fade, the bilingual sign settling into stone, the boundary marker straight in its trench, the temple doors closing with a padded click. Let your body learn the city's calm. Picture a quiet courtyard where only a fountain speaks, counting time in drops. One by one, the windows go dark. Yours can too. In a moment, even the cat in the library will find a deeper pocket of sleep. If anything still worries at the edge of your mind, fold it once, fold it again, and place it with the others. Until morning, the watch is kept. Until morning, you are home.